lepšie bude, nie?
Ne, ja si to prirobím.
Má?
Môžete nechať. This is work of Silaši. To je krásne. Is the chapel of St. George.
Co? Povedz mi to.
Careful, Matthew.
Co?
Yeah. You know more? This is the Church of St. Jacob in Lavocha. It was built in the last half of the 14th century, and it is in the Gothic style. And it is the second largest Gothic structure in Slovakia. The largest structure of Gothic style is the dome of St. Alžbeta in Košice. When they were building the church, there was a symbolism kept in building the church. There is 12 pillars that hold the church together, or on which where the church was built. And the 12 pillars is like 12 apostles. And also in the old days there were 5 entrances to the church, symbolizing the 5 wounds of Christ. The whole structure was split into 3 sections, 3 boats, as a Holy Trinity, the Holy Father, the Holy Son, and the Holy Ghost. So there is the one, the main, and the third. In this church they have the largest amount of Gothic altars in Slovakia preserved and on display. And of course the main altar is the altar of St. Jacob. This altar was designed and built in the early 16th century, and it was made in the workshop of Master Pavel from Lavocha from 1507, 1508 till 1517. The figurines and the main altar that you are looking at were actually made in the period of 2 years by Master Paul, but then it took all these years to finish the altar and make all the work. The main figurines and the side pictures of the altars are from a linden tree, and there is not one piece of any iron in the whole altar. So basically it's done from linden, and there are wooden pegs holding it together. The top part that you are looking at is silver plated, and then it was varnished with a varnish that gives the appearance of a gold. And the bottom part is also out of wood, but it is done with the plate gold. And there's real gold covering all the wooden structures that you see, like the yellow, that is gold. The most beautiful part of the whole altar is the Last Supper. And here the Master Paul from Lavocha shown his artistry, where in each figurine, or the 12 apostles that are at the Last Supper, you can see the expression of their faces, and the reality it's in there. This is the Last Supper at the moment where Jesus is saying to his disciples, or 12 apostles, he's saying to them that after this Last Supper, somebody will betray me. So anyway, this is the Last Supper at the moment where Jesus is having a dinner and with his disciples, the 12 apostles, and he's saying somebody after this supper will betray me. The apostles on the right side and the apostles in the left side are having a good time, and they are like if there was nothing happening, and Jesus is worried.
Podopiera hlavu, to je Peter.
Okay, the Saint Peter is to his on his left side, to our right side, and that is one of the disciples that will deny him, and he denied him 3 times. And the second person is a Judas with the bag of money and with the hand up on, and not really listening to Jesus at all. So when you see Jesus is talking and he is saying that somebody will deny him and betray him, and the Judas, he has his arm up, and Master Paul made him with a red face, us of being worried, but he's the one that is listening, but or sort of not listening, but Master Paul kind of put the moment into the wood the way it was. And on the Christ's arms or in his lap there is a Saint Apostle John, and he was the youngest and the most cleanest apostles of all, and he's sleeping in front of him, almost like in his arms. Saint Apostle Jan was faithful to Jesus till the last moments, and Master Paul is made the statue like resting before the long journey with Jesus to the end. A copy of the Last Supper was displayed at the Expo 67 in Montreal, where it got the gold medal for artistry. 3 main figures in the main altar box are made out of linden tree, and they are larger than the real life, and they are about 8 feet high. The main figure, the Saint Mary and the Saint Apostle John, they look alike, like almost a mirror image. Mary is pictured here as real life and in full age, which wasn't a custom in Gothic.
Zase Jan je zobrazený s tvárou skôr ženskou ako
And John is pictured as with a woman's face, which is also rare.
A odlišnou od týchto dvoch postav je svätý apoštol Jakub, postava vľavo, patron tohto chrámu.
And the difference in here is the Saint Jacob, who the church is blessed to, or a patriarch of the church.
Ako jediný z týchto troch sôch je zobrazený v pohybe.
And he's the only one that is kind of pictured as if he was moving.
Pokrčenou nohou v kolene, ako by chcel odísť z tohto oltára, čiže tým je zobrazený jeho pohyb.
And he's got a bent knee, and he seems like he wanted to leave from the altar.
No jeho tvár je zobrazená, ako by to bol živý človek. Je červená, veľmi ošľahaná vetrom.
And but his face is red, as if it was a real life person, and his face is also being exposed to like if it was being exposed to a wind. Saint Mary with baby Jesus.
Tváre všetkých týchto troch sôch sú veľmi predĺžené.
All the faces are elongated, like they are longer than in real life.
Majú vysoké čela, vysunuté lícne kosti.
They have a big, high foreheads, and the cheekbones are also enlarged.
Špicaté nosy a veľmi malé ústa.
They have really pointy noses and small mouths.
Vysunutú, neprirodzene okrúhlu bradu.
And their chin is coming out from the face, which is not really natural.
No a veľmi zvláštne stavané šikmé oči.
And very in different style pictured their eyes.
U Márie a u Jána si všimnime prekrásne vypracovanie kučeravých vlasov.
Mary has curly hair and so does John. Yeah.
U Jakuba prekrásne vypracovanie kučeravej brady.
And Saint Jacob has a really fantastically made curly beard.
To všetko sú typické prvky práve práce majstra Pavla.
And these are the typical elements of the work of Master Paul from Lavocha. To the right side is two pictures of life of Saint John.
V hornej časti je zobrazené písanie Apokalipsy na ostrove Patmos.
In the top part is the writing of the Apocalypse at the island of Patmos.
V dolnej časti várenie svätého Jána vo vriacom oleji.
And the bottom is cooking of Saint John in the hot oil. That's how they torture him. They put him in the hot oil and they also put the hot oil over him. And on the left side,
v hornej časti výjav rozoslania apoštolov do sveta.
Is the apostles are going to the world.
V dolnej časti sťatie svätého Jakuba pred bránami Jeruzalema.
And the bottom is the beheading of Saint Jacob in front of where?
Pred bránami Jeruzalema.
Oh, in front of Jerusalem. During the Lent, this altar is closed, and the two sides they cover the main altar, and then there is a new paintings will become visible that are right now behind these. Now behind there is 8 paintings of Christ from his last days when he was tortured up to the end. Last part is the violet part of the whole altar, where there is 12 apostles. These 12 apostles are from the last part of the 14th century, and they are not the work of Master Paul, but they were there, and then he placed them in there to show the work of another artist of Lavocha. So they also are at the famous altar. This altar was restored in 1952 to 1954. It was 2 years, and it was by Master Kotoba's 2 brothers from Brno, currently in Czech Republic. They restored this altar, and I can tell you one thing: this is the tallest altar in the world, and it's 18.62 meters high. The width of the altar is 6 meters and 27 centimeters. And with these measurements is the tallest altar in the world of Gothic architecture. Now, Master Paul of Lavocha is also attributed by 2 other altars, which is the altar of 4 Johns from 1520, and I will tell you about this on my next trip to Slovakia. And the second altar that is also from Master Paul is from 1516, and this is the altar of Saint Anne. But the altars are made in Renaissance style, but the figures in there are Gothic. So the altars are new and the figurines are old. Actually, sorry about that. The Master Paul was doing them in Renaissance style. So this was towards the end of his life. So we are at the altars of 4 Johns, and this is the burial of Christ. So this is the Christ, the last minutes of Christ. He just died, and you can see the expressions of the faces. They are very sorry. And here the lady there lamenting, and Mary is putting the Christ down, and Saint John next to him, and they are all devastated that he passed away. There is a Maria Magdalena that is kissing the feet of Christ. And there is the 4 Johns. And this is John the Baptist, John the Evangelist, and it is John of Golden Tongue. And up on the top, and this is Mary's ascension to heaven.
Ale ako vidíš tú sošku, tu Máriu zrejme robil nejaký iba jeho učen, pretože to je dosť slabá socha oproti tým, ktoré sme pozerali na
And if you can see, this probably was done by one of his students, because it's not as good of a quality as the other work of Master Paul we are used to. And here we are at the chapel of with the altar of birth, and this is very rare because the altar, as you can see, is in the Baroque style from 18th century, but the main figurines of the altar of birth are from the 16th century, and they are the works of Master Paul from Lavocha. The rare story about the whole altar of birth is that this altar wasn't here at all. And in 1698, when they were restoring the city hall, which is close by here, the workers found behind the false wall 7 statues that are currently in this altar. And the 7 statues were the 3 angels that are above the Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the 2 shepherds. The Jesus and the donkey and the cow were added later on by different masters. Originally they didn't know that the statues were made by Master Paul from Lavocha, and they were, as I mentioned, they were discovered in the end of the 16th century, and in 1752 the Archbishop, what was his name? Nicholas Chaki. The Archbishop of Nicholas Chaki God built this Baroque altar, and they placed these figurines into the altar. And when they discovered, after they were placed there in the Baroque altar, this is the way how the Gothic sculptures got on the Gothic altar. Later on they discovered it was actually work of Master Paul of Lavocha. Above there is, it's not proven, but they say this is the Archbishop Chaki, and then you have angels playing different instruments on top there. The 2 shepherds were represented at the World Exposition in Brussels, and it was somewhere in the 1950s. The angel on the right side was a study to make a face of Saint Mary. Well, that's what everybody thinks so, because they look alike. And Mary's face is also on a Slovak currency. And the picture of Mary's face from the famous altar is also on the Slovak currency, and it is on the 100 Slovak crowns note.
No ešte čosi. Rozpráva sa, že vraj majster na týchto svojich sochách, na ich plášťach všade vytvoril aspoň jednu draperiu v tvare ucha, a vidíme to najlepšie tu na plášti Márie. Vidíš to? To svetle, kde Mária hnie to svetlo. Mm-hmm.
On all of his draperies and all of his gowns, Master Paul always, that's what the experts discovered, that in all of them you can see a likeness of ear, and this is one of them. The second ear is here, and what he was trying to symbolize that all the prayers are getting closer to God through these figures. That would be the symbolism, but it might be true. Was it proud? Master Paul was always putting expression in the faces. You can see that Joseph is really happy that his child was born. On the other hand, Mary, on the one hand, she's happy, but you can see also that she's worried about the Son of God being born, and also about his future, what the future will bring for him, because at that time nobody knew what is